Hi, so this is my spoiler review of Conclave. So if you haven't watched the movie, I highly recommend you go out and watch it and then pause this review and then come back after you've seen it. So I want to expand upon my comment and my other theory reaction when I talked about this movie being predictable. So at the end of the movie, this was the first time I realized after watching the credits that it was actually based off a book. I never heard of this book. So I went into this movie blind. And immediately I noticed that there was this dichotomy between tradition and the heart. And this is a thing that comes up. Obviously, if you read the Bible, it's all over there, especially in the New Testament. There's this character called Benitez. He's a new cardinal that none of them really know about because the Pope, he had basically made him a cardinal in secret because of his situation over in, I can't remember the name of the country, it was like a Middle Eastern country. And so he first comes into the conclave. They're a little skeptical, obviously, of him at first, but then they have this scene where they introduce him to the conclave, and I believe Lawrence Rafe Fiennes' character basically prompts him to say the prayer. And so Benitez says a few words, and then you start to see the other cardinals kind of like sit down, like, okay, we've already said our prayers, so let's get on with the meeting. But then Benitez like keeps going on. He keeps talking about basically like humility and gratitude, like for the people. And so that scene to me, I mean, I want to illustrate like this dichotomy between like the traditional views and the new views, the being of the spirit. And I thought at that moment, I was like, oh, okay, now I get where this film is going. They're making it so that he's going to be the new cardinal. Because remember the Pope, the Pope that had died in the movie, he had basically wanted this guy to stay, and we find out later on what the controversy was and how why he encouraged him to stay. And so, yeah, I thought that part was predictable for me. I'm watching these scenes, especially at that scene where he makes that speech where I forgot the character's name, Tedesco. He after the bombing makes a speech about the bombing, how he was very xenophobic, very intolerant, very true to his character, Tedesco. But Benitez, he gets up and talks about how this should be an absolute opportunity to be tolerant. So again, we have this dichotomy here, and that pretty much laid the groundwork for him to become the next pope. What I didn't see coming, again, I didn't never read the book, so I don't know if this is part of the book or not, was that actually Benitez was intersect. I was a little bit confused at first because when they mentioned the word clinic, I'm thinking, oh shoot, he ran an abortion clinic. Like that would have been really controversial, right? In the Catholic Church, they don't support abortion. But no, it turns out that Benitez, he was basically born with both male parts and female parts. So he's intersex. So that's, of course, a controversial position. And we see that in the movie because there's this the men are all, cardinals, they're all in positions of power. You see the nuns in the background, the main nun, played by Isabella Rossellini, she's in the background as well. So you have these men in positions of power, but then to have someone come in, obviously they're not going to bring in a woman to be pope. That would be unheard of. But you saw Lawrence's initial reaction. He was like furious, like in disdain, like what? And then he goes and talks to Benitez after he becomes pope, and he names himself Pope Innocent. But again, this is like a representation of the break from the old traditions where you have this tradition of having all the men always in power. Where now you have someone who's, I guess, both male parts, female parts, kind of like breaking away from that tradition from old to new. So overall, I thought this movie was good. Let me just go through some of the likes again. The acting was great. I mean, Ray Fiennes. To me, Schindler's List is still his best performance, but this is probably his best role since Schindler's List, especially that speech he had about diversity. Um, there was a scene where Ray Fiennes' character Lawrence was trying to convince Benitez to support. I believe it was Tremblay at the time, and Benitez is like, no, I don't think Tremblay's qualified. You're the one who's qualified. I'm voting for you. And then um, Ray Fiennes like, no, no, you don't vote for me. Like, no, you vote for him. And Benitez holds his position. Like I thought that performance was good by both of the actors, but here I'm talking about Ray Fiennes. And that, of course, at the end of the movie, where initially Ray Fiennes is like upset about the news about Benitez, finding out there's something that happened in the clinic, and then he later has a conversation with him. But then by the end of the movie, he has this sense of like satisfaction that he ultimately made the right decision in supporting the Benitez. So I thought that performance, and that was all through the performance of Ray Fiennes. I thought that was really good. So if there's any Oscar buzz about Ray Fiennes, getting an Oscar, it's in my opinion, it's well deserved. Of course, you have Stanley Tucci. He plays Bellini. Um, they set up his character, I thought, really well at the beginning of the movie, where he has this scene with Lawrence and they're looking at a chessboard. And of course, Lawrence suggests that he takes the chessboard because Bellini used to play chess with the Pope. So, of course, chess symbolizes strategy, which tells me that he's like a strategist, right? And so, of course, that pays off later in the movie where Lawrence and Bellini have this scene where basically he's Lawrence had at this point found out that Tremblay had done some dirty stuff. He went to the Pope's room, broke the seal, and found this paperwork that shows that he was basically paying people off. He was really underhanded, very sneaky guy, Tremblay. But it turns out that Tucci, the character Bellini, still wanted to support Lawrence because basically Lawrence figured out that he was Bellini was promised a high position if Tremblay was put into power. So that kind of shows like throughout the whole movie, uh, Bellini is he's one of the candidates for Pope, but he also doesn't want to be the Pope. And of course, at that moment, I was like, "Oh wait, okay, wait a minute." He's just trying to play this humility, act like he's being humble, but he really wants power. But no, it was more like he was humble. He didn't want to be in the position, but it was more like there was another ulterior motive than that was he wanted Tremblay to be empowered so that he can be in a higher position within the church. So again, that goes to his character, like his the strategy component that we saw in the early part of the film. Lithgow, he's the actor who plays Tremblay. I thought it was a good performance by him. Obviously, to me, his best performance is the Trinity Killer in Dexter. I can't remember which season it was, but that was John Lithgow as his finest. But here he plays this slimy, lying, backstabbing. You could tell like when he's talking, he's just lying through his teeth, and I credit John Lithgow with that performance. Yeah, it was. I thought he did really good in the role as Tremblay. And then there was Tedesco. So this is the cardinal that both Lawrence and Bellini do not like. They do not want to see him in power. And the opening scene, you can tell from the dialogue that there's this hostility against him. But then, as the film goes along, you see why. Because Tedesco is unlikable. He's a racist, xenophobic, intolerant. And again, I was referring to that scene where after the bombing, where basically it was like some car attack, probably by some kind of like Muslim or anti, uh, probably some religious organization that bombed the church that was outside the Catholic Church. And he gets up and makes his speech about going after them, being saying we have to hit them before hit us type mentality. And there were some cardinals that were supporting him, and then Like, I just thought he came across as really racist and xenophobic, and uh, that was basically show why he should not be cardinal. So anyway, I thought the dialogue, the acting was really good in the movie. I thought the intensity was good. Basically, the message of the movie. I mean, there's several themes in the movie, but you have this theme of conservatism versus liberalism, tradition versus and politics versus being about the people, being about the heart, the spirit. Um, and this really comes down to this overall. I mean, there's a bunch of good characters in the movie, but mostly the main character, Lawrence, he's basically put in circumstances where there's a power vacuum, and he doesn't want power. He actually wanted to leave the church because he was having a crisis of faith, but basically circumstances put him in his position. And it's like, what do you do when um, there's this power vacuum, and you don't want power, but you find it necessary to maintain power in order to prevent a greater evil. So it's about a choice of lesser evils. I mean, that's pretty much what the movie's about. Humor. There were some funny moments in it. I mean, this is not a comedy. I don't want to see this picture nominated as like a best comedy or anything like you see in like the what's that show, the reward show for TV. I can't remember the name. I don't even watch it, but that's just so ridiculous. But there were some funny moments in the movie, particularly Isabella Rossellini's character. So I'm speaking of the moment where she is in the room. She's being silent like the women are supposed to do. And they're basically, it's where Lawrence's character confronts Tremblay in front of the whole conclave about the documents they found. And of course, Tremblay's being all, he's deflecting. He's like, hey, whoa, you broke into the Pope's room. You should have done that. That's the real issue. And so he's just being all manipulative and deceiving and whatnot. But then Rosalini's character steps up and says, look, I know I'm supposed to be silent here because I'm a woman, but she basically confirms that he was the guy who ordered the nun in to disparage. I believe it was I can't remember the name of the other cardinal who was up for election, but he basically brought him in to disparage another candidate for the Pope. And then so she kind of like said her piece and then walked out, and it was just a funny moment for me. There's a little joke that Lawrence made about American politics when he was having this meeting on the stairway with Stanley Tucci's character about who they were going to support. So I thought those moments were funny, but I mean, overall, everything else was good. The set designs were good. The costumes were good. The score was good. So this movie was directed by Edward Berger. You may have, that name may sound familiar, but he may not be a household name. But he's the same guy that directed the most recent version of All Quiet on the Western Front that came out a couple years ago, which I thought was a great movie. It's one of my favorite movies in the last 10 years. So he made this one. I don't think the score was as strong as All Quiet on the Western Front, and I still enjoyed that movie more than this one. But I think this movie featured better acting than All Quiet on the Western Front. So yeah, I'm gonna be looking out for Edward Berger because he's made a couple movies that are really good. Dislikes. I thought some of the who was kind of hard to follow. It was really hard to follow when they were talking about a certain pope or cardinal, who that person was referring to. And I thought the movie felt long. It was about 2 hours. I thought it felt a little bit long. Maybe they could have cut it down a little bit. Is it worth a repeat viewing? Probably not in the theater. I probably won't go see it again in the theater. But once it comes back on streaming, then I'll probably watch it again. So make no mistake, though, I do recommend this movie to be watched in the theater because I think movies like these should be supported with our dollars, not just with our words. So when you go out to the movie and you use your AMC stub or you paying money for it, that signals to Hollywood like, hey, we want to see these type of movies, these movies with that are about something, that features good acting, good script. That's not just like your typical blockbuster type movie, right? So yeah, overall, I do recommend the movie. You'll find out more reviews on ML movie reviews on my YouTube channel. Thank you.